Joe Rogan just dropped a bomb, calling out Erika Kirk for allegedly lying straight to Charlie Kirk's parents. The internet is exploding, the truth is twisting, and now everyone wants to know one thing. Is Erika Kirk guilty? Or is there more to this story than anyone realizes? Joe Rogan sits back in his chair, the dim studio lights glowing against the brick walls as he lets out a slow breath. Man. I wasn't even planning to talk about this today, he says, shaking his head with that half laugh he uses when something unbelievable is sitting on his mind. But the internet won't leave this alone. My DMs, my feed, everything has been people sending me this clip, this whole drama involving Erika Kirk and Charlie Kirk's parents. And after watching it, I'm thinking, what the hell is going on? He leans forward, elbows on the table, staring at his guest with that intense look he gets when a conversation is about to get real. Like, who lies to someone's parents? That's what I don't understand. You're not talking about political rivals, you're not talking about random people at some event. You're talking about parents, private citizens, just trying to understand what's happening with their son. And somehow this turns into a public mess that everybody's dissecting. His guest nods slowly, unsure whether to laugh or brace for impact. Joe isn't joking. Dude, I watched that clip like 3 times, Joe continues. At first, I thought maybe it was edited or taken out of context. But the more I watched it, the more I thought, this didn't look like someone who misspoke. This looked like someone who said something they weren't supposed to say. Something that wasn't true. And now it's become this wildfire that everybody's talking about. He picks up his drink, takes a sip, and stares at the table as if replaying the whole thing in his mind. And listen, in politics, people lie all the time. It's like a sport. People twist words, people exaggerate, people play games. But lying to someone's parents about their own kid, that hits differently. That crosses into a completely different kind of manipulation. The guest tries to soften the tension, saying maybe it was all a misunderstanding. Joe raises an eyebrow. A misunderstanding. He laughs, but there's no humor in it. Come on. If you accidentally say something wrong, you correct it. You go, oh hey, sorry, that's not accurate. But when the story snowballs like this, when the reactions are this intense, when people who normally stay quiet suddenly start posting cryptic comments, that's not what a misunderstanding looks like. That's what damage control looks like. He leans back again, tapping the table lightly with his fingers. You know what the weirdest part is? Erika isn't some rookie. She's not new to the game. She knows how conservative circles work. She knows every word counts, every statement gets analyzed. She knows how fast information gets around. So if she did lie, she had to know how risky that was. And that begs the question, why do it? What was she trying to accomplish? His guest shrugs, looking just as confused as the audience probably is. I mean, think about it, Joe continues. What do you gain from misleading someone's parents? Was she trying to protect Charlie? Was she trying to shape a narrative? Was she trying to cover something up? Or was she trying to make herself look better by controlling the story? People don't lie without motive. He pauses, eyes narrowing a bit. And the internet is treating this like a courtroom. People are analyzing every blink, every word, every expression. It's insane. But that's what happens when trust breaks. People turn into detectives. His guest laughs, but Joe doesn't. You know what I hate about situations like this? Joe asks. The audience only sees the surface. They see one clip, one interaction, one piece of the puzzle. But behind the scenes, there's always a bigger story. People don't wake up and randomly decide to lie to someone's parents. So either something else was happening, or someone panicked, or somebody wanted to steer the narrative in a different direction. And either way, it's messy. He reaches for the pen on the table, spinning it slowly as he keeps talking. You ever notice something? When scandals happen in political, or religious, or influencer circles, everyone always acts shocked. But the truth is, these circles are just like Hollywood. Everyone's competing. Everyone's watching their back. Everyone's trying to rise. And when that pressure builds up, people start doing weird things, strange things, things that don't make sense from the outside looking in. His guest agrees, mentioning how people behave differently when reputation is on the line. Joe snaps his fingers. Exactly. And when your entire identity is tied to being a figure of influence, you can become desperate to protect it. That's when lies happen. That's when people cross lines they normally wouldn't cross. He looks at the camera for a moment, as if speaking to the viewers directly. People keep asking me if Erika is guilty. I don't know, because I'm not in the room. But you can tell a lot by how someone responds. And so far, the responses have been vague. No real clarifications. No detailed explanation. No, here's exactly what happened. Just a bunch of general statements. And vague explanations usually mean something isn't clean. His guest nods, adding that the silence from other influencers is also interesting. Joe points toward him. Yes. Silence says a lot. When people who normally talk non-stop suddenly shut up, that's not a coincidence. That means everyone's being careful, because everyone knows something we don't. Joe takes another sip, sighing. And poor Charlie, man. Imagine being him right now. You've got your parents confused and upset. You've got someone close to your circle accused of lying to them. And you've got millions of people online watching your every reaction. No matter what you say, someone is going to twist it. He pauses again, as if letting the weight of that sink in. And imagine being his parents. You think you're having a normal conversation with someone in your kid's professional orbit, and then later you find out that maybe what they told you wasn't true. That's not just political drama. That's a personal drama. That hits the family level. And once it hits the family, man, the damage is so much deeper. The guest asks Joe whether he thinks the truth is going to come out. Joe nods instantly. Always. It always comes out. Someone always leaks something, texts, emails, recordings, something. And when it does, people will finally see what really happened. He looks back up at the camera. Until then, we're all watching a fire burn, waiting to see what started it. Joe doesn't waste any time easing into the next part of the discussion. He sits forward, hands clasped, eyes narrowed just a little as if he's mentally lining up every piece of this unfolding situation. Here's what's blowing my mind, he says. If Erika really did lie to Charlie Kirk's parents, then the big question nobody seems to be asking is, what exactly was she trying to gain? People don't just invent information for no reason, especially not in high-pressure political spaces. There's always a goal, always. Was she trying to protect someone? Redirect something? Cover something up? Point the blame somewhere else? Or was she trying to control the narrative before it reached them from another source? His guest shifts uncomfortably, because the deeper Joe goes, the more complicated the situation sounds. And listen, Joe continues, this isn't some casual lie at a dinner party. This is telling the parents of a national political figure something significant, something impactful. You mess with someone's parents, that's like touching the electric fence of family loyalty. The shock spreads instantly. He taps the table lightly, the thumping sound echoing in the studio. People have been messaging me saying, Joe, Maybe she thought she was doing the right thing. And I get it, but look at what's happening now. Silence. Strategic silence. That's when you know people aren't confident in the person they'd normally defend. He leans in, lowering his voice slightly, as if he's letting the audience in on a secret. And silence in politics is never random. People talk privately. They check the temperature. They wait to see which direction the wind is blowing. And right now, nobody's defending Erika with any real conviction. That's a red flag bigger than the controversy itself. Joe shifts the conversation back toward Charlie. Imagine being Charlie Kirk right now. Anything he says gets weaponized. If he denies it, people accuse him of protecting her. If he confirms it, people accuse him of throwing her under the bus. So he's stuck. Completely stuck. This is the worst kind of public scandal, the one that traps you emotionally, professionally, and publicly all at the same time. The guest nods. Joe continues, and then you've got his parents. These are private folks. They didn't sign up to be dragged into political influencer drama. They didn't ask to be part of some online narrative. They were just having a conversation, and now it's being dissected by millions of strangers. That's not just uncomfortable, that's humiliating. You feel betrayed, confused, maybe even stupid for trusting someone you thought was sincere. He pauses, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. But here's where it gets interesting. The reactions from people who know the Kirks personally, they are subtle, but they are telling. They are posting cryptic quotes about honesty and integrity. They're liking tweets about betrayal. They're engaging with content they normally ignore. It's like they're angry, but they can't say it outright. That usually means they're waiting for something, either private resolution, or a public reveal. His guest points out that the whole story feels incomplete. Joe nods. Exactly. What we've seen so far feels like the tip of the iceberg. Something underneath triggered this. Something behind the scenes pushed this whole thing into the public eye. And people don't expose private conversations unless they feel wronged. That means someone in this situation is seriously hurt. Joe shifts the focus again. And let's talk about Erika for a second, not her guilt or innocence, but the way she carries herself online. She's always positioned herself as a voice of moral integrity, faith, leadership, influence, values. And when someone builds their entire brand on morality, one lie, one deception, can destroy everything. People judge more harshly because the fall from grace is bigger. He sighs. I've seen this over and over again. In Hollywood. In comedy. In political movements. People create these spotless public personas. They talk about character, honesty, loyalty. And then behind closed doors, the pressure, the competition, the ego, it all starts eating away at those values. And before you know it, one decision changes everything. The guest wonders aloud whether Erika underestimated how big this would become. Joe's response is immediate. Absolutely. She probably thought it was a private moment. Maybe she thought no one would question her. Maybe she thought Charlie would back her up. Maybe she thought the parents wouldn't talk about it. But that's the thing about lies, they are unpredictable. They slip out of your hands the minute someone else finds out. He smirks. And the internet? The internet doesn't forgive. It doesn't forget. It doesn't care about context. It wants a villain. It wants a storyline. And right now, Erika is the character of the week. He takes a slow breath before continuing. But you know what's scarier than the internet? The people around you are losing trust. Once trust breaks, relationships don't recover easily. Even if Charlie forgives her, even if his parents forgive her, there will always be that seed of doubt. That moment of hesitation. That little voice in the back of their minds saying, "Remember what happened last time?" And that's the kind of damage that lives forever. Joe picks up his drink again, holding it loosely. And until the truth comes out, until someone releases the receipts, or the full story, all any of us can do is watch the fallout. But something tells me we're not even close to the end. Someone's going to talk. Someone's going to leak something. Scandals like this always have a second wave. He turns to the camera one more time. And when that hits, that's when the real story begins. As the story continued to unfold, the public and media alike began asking the ultimate question: was Erika Kirk truly guilty of misleading Charlie Kirk's parents? Or was this simply a case of miscommunication, blown out of proportion? Joe Rogan's commentary, as always, had already influenced the discussion. But as the dust settled, different perspectives began to emerge, highlighting the complexity of judging actions in the age of instant information. One of the most striking aspects of the aftermath was how divided the audience remained. Some saw Erika's actions as clearly deceptive, pointing to inconsistencies in her statements and the confusion it caused for Charlie's parents. They argued that even if she didn't intend harm, the result was the same: misinformation spread, trust was affected, and reputations were impacted. For these critics, Rogan's blunt assessment was justified. They believed that accountability isn't optional, especially when personal and public spheres collide. On the other side, supporters of Erika maintained that the situation was far more nuanced. They emphasized that intent is key, and in this case, there was no evidence of malicious intent. From this perspective, Erika may have made a mistake, but labeling her as guilty oversimplified the situation. Rogan acknowledged this viewpoint during his show, noting that the gray areas are what make ethical questions like this so challenging. Mistakes happen, misunderstandings occur, and public perception can be misleading. Rogan also highlighted the role of digital media in shaping guilt or innocence. The speed at which clips, posts, and opinions spread means that stories are often judged before all facts are known. In Erika's case, snippets of her conversation and Rogan's commentary circulated widely, with commentary added by others, creating a narrative that sometimes deviated from reality. This amplification effect illustrates Rogan's recurring point: the public has immense influence over how events are perceived, and once a story gains momentum, it can take on a life of its own. In analyzing Erika's actions, Rogan broke down the situation into three components: intention, communication, and consequence. First, intention. Did Erika intend to mislead? The evidence was inconclusive. While some statements seemed contradictory, it was unclear whether this reflected deliberate deceit or confusion. Second, communication. How were her statements interpreted by Charlie's parents? Clearly, there was misunderstanding, which Rogan suggested could have been mitigated by clarity and transparency. Third, consequence. What was the impact of the information? Here, Rogan was unequivocal: regardless of intent, the result mattered. Charlie's parents felt misled, and public perception had already begun to judge Erika harshly. This framework helped viewers and listeners understand why Rogan's critique resonated so strongly. He wasn't just pointing fingers, he was illustrating a principle that applies to everyone. In personal relationships, work, or public life, the combination of intention, clarity, and consequence determines accountability. Even unintentional mistakes can carry consequences if they are not addressed responsibly. Rogan emphasized that acknowledging mistakes, clarifying misunderstandings, and taking ownership is the best path forward. The public's response continued to evolve. Some fans of Joe Rogan praised him for not sugarcoating the situation, calling his approach refreshing in an era where influencers often avoid responsibility. Others criticized him for turning a private family matter into a spectacle. Social media was filled with debates over whether Rogan's involvement made the controversy worse or provided a necessary lesson in ethics. This controversy also sparked a broader cultural conversation. Rogan pointed out that society often expects perfection in communication, especially from those in the public eye. Mistakes are scrutinized disproportionately, and the public tends to judge without full context. Erika's situation became a microcosm of this phenomenon, highlighting how quickly reputations can be affected by a combination of small missteps and amplified narratives. Rogan argued that navigating this landscape requires vigilance, integrity, and a willingness to correct mistakes. As the discussion drew to a close, Rogan summarized the key lessons from the Erika Kirk situation. First, clarity is essential. When communicating, especially about sensitive matters, being precise and transparent reduces the risk of misunderstanding. Second, accountability matters, regardless of intent. Even unintentional mistakes have consequences, and taking responsibility can prevent further escalation. Third, public perception is powerful. Social media and news cycles amplify narratives, and how one responds to scrutiny can define reputations. He also emphasized personal responsibility in the digital age. Everyone has a role in shaping discourse. By being careful with words, verifying facts, and addressing misunderstandings promptly, individuals can prevent small issues from becoming large controversies. Rogan framed this as a universal lesson, whether in politics, social media, or private interactions. Honesty and accountability are non-negotiable if one wants to maintain trust and credibility. Finally, Rogan left his audience with a philosophical reflection. The Erika Kirk controversy, while specific in its details, mirrors broader challenges in modern life. Miscommunication, unintended consequences, and public judgment are realities we all face. The difference lies in how we respond. Erika's story serves as a cautionary tale, not just about honesty, but about the responsibility each person bears in managing the impact of their words. By the end of part 3, it's clear that labeling Erika as guilty is complicated. Intent was unclear, miscommunication played a role, and the consequences, while real, were magnified by public attention. Rogan's ultimate point transcends the specifics of the case. Truth, clarity, and accountability are essential, and handling mistakes responsibly is crucial. The story leaves viewers with a nuanced perspective, showing that personal and public ethics intersect in ways that can be messy, challenging, and highly instructive. In conclusion, the Erika Kirk controversy, amplified by Joe Rogan's commentary, is more than just a dispute between individuals. It's a reflection of our times, how quickly misinformation spreads, how public judgment is formed, and how critical it is to communicate responsibly. Whether Erika is truly guilty remains subjective, but the lessons are universal. Accountability matters. Intent matters, but impact cannot be ignored. And in an age where every word can go viral, honesty is not just a moral choice, it's a necessity. The discussion leaves viewers and listeners with lingering questions. How would you handle a misunderstanding that has public repercussions? How do you balance intent with consequence? And perhaps most importantly, how do we hold ourselves accountable in a world that magnifies every mistake? Rogan's analysis encourages reflection, debate, and a renewed focus on ethics in communication, a fitting conclusion to a story that began with a single alleged falsehood and grew into a public discourse about truth, trust, and responsibility. So, what do you think? Was Erika Kirk truly guilty of misleading Charlie Kirk's parents? Or was this just a case of miscommunication amplified by social media? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear your perspective. If you found this breakdown insightful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, so you don't miss our deep dives into the latest controversies and ethical debates. Hit the notification bell to stay updated on every story we unpack next. And remember, in a world full of opinions and headlines, Always question, analyze, and think for yourself. Your voice matters. Let's keep the conversation going.